One quick note on this, and I can give a very long talk on this, but I want to try to summarize it. Some who read a few, it always happens from the two imams in particular, and they like to read few quotes and then declare people mushrikeen and kuffar left and right. This is an issue that really I plan, inshallah ta'ala, to write a book on. But I'll summarize it real quick. And it stems out of the matter about those mainly those who are in the West. Someone who tries, for example, to retrieve a lost wealth, devastatingly lost wealth, or kids through a legal custody. If one's heart is full of belief, in Allah, and he goes to retrieve that right that causes him extreme severe hardship, if it's a major catastrophic loss, or if one loses, for example, kids who are going to grow up to be non-Muslims, if it's an extreme, devastating loss, and his purpose is only to retain a right taken from him, you don't call him a mushrik if he goes to a court in the West. The Prophet ﷺ, if he has kufr in taghut, in belief in Allah, and he's just going to retrieve a right, the Prophet ﷺ, he witnessed the covenant of al-mutayyibin. It was a covenant that the Prophet ﷺ praised. And the word in itself is taken from the word tayyib, good, a name given to those who conducted that treaty. He said, شهدت مع عمومتي حلف المطيبين فما أحب أن أنكثه ولو أن لي حمر النعم. So the Prophet ﷺ praised that covenant that was done prior to his messagehood, and he attended it. He praised it after, and it was attended by Banu Hisham and Banu Zahra and Ibn Jad'an, and it was in the house of Ibn Jad'an. And he, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that covenant was to retrieve the rights of those who were oppressed or wronged, and to give them their rights back. That treaty made and entailed law where people are judged by and would have to accept the decision when settling the disputes of those who are oppressed. No one can say the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that statement and praised those, that he approved the laws of Tawaghit because he attended it in his Jahiliyyah or praised it after Islam. A treaty by the leaders, the heads of Kufr, entailed judgment in courts to it to settle disputes for those who were oppressed. When the Sahaba were brought before An-Najashi, it was like a court. You can't say they were forced because they could have chose to go back to Mecca. More so, more clear than that, more proof on that is the story of Al-Hajjaj ibn Allat al-Silmi, the Sahabi, who was a very rich merchant. After the battle of Khaybar, look how late, after the battle of Khaybar, he went and asked the Prophet ﷺ permission to go back to Mecca, live there for a while. He needed a term to live there, be kind to Quraysh, to retrieve his wealth. You gotta go talk to the leaders of Quraysh, and give me back my money, and be sweet talk them to get his money back. And he even told the Prophet ﷺ, it may be that he has to speak ill about the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ allowed him to go. This is a matter that a full book needs to be written on, and I can explain more on it in both opinions fully. The point is, it's not to encourage people to go to courts of the Tawaghit. We're not talking about that. This is exceptional circumstance of one whose heart is full of Iman, full of Tawheed, despises the Tawaghit, yet has a right taken away that causes him extreme, devastating hardship, and cannot get it but through those courts. Each situation of what constitutes a hardship is judged individually. Can't generalize what constitutes a darura and extreme hardship. A major catastrophe, not just something minor. If it's something he can handle, even if it's a major catastrophe, without going into the courts of Tawaghit, don't go. Seek recompensation from Allah. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. But if one cannot handle the situation and it's extreme hardship and there's no other way to retrieve his right, and he goes to retrieve that right, fully accepting the laws, his heart is full in the law, accepting the laws of Allah, despising the tawaghit, then you don't call, this is my point, you don't call him a mushrik kafir. A group of brothers several months ago wanted me to speak to one of their peer who was running around calling his other brother a mushrik kafir because he fought a custody battle to get his daughter from the hands of someone who was going to take a woman who was going to take him and raise his daughter, a mushrika kafira. And he's calling the brother who fought to get that daughter in court a mushrik kafir for going to that court. His proof are quotes taken out of context from some of the ulama, some of our prominent ulama, like Ibn Taymiyyah and Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab. And he began to repeat the quotes over and over. Kufr and taghut. You know, some people believe it's like a shell they know about. Kufr and taghut. But what's in it, they don't know what's in it. I finally asked him at the end, I said, who the ulama you look up to? He said, well, you're number one. And then he said, Sheikh Ali al-Khudair, number two. Love his fatawa, you know, his fatawa and takfir are very full of proof. He knows what he's talking about, Sheikh Ali al-Khudair. I said, put me aside. Go read what Sheikh Ali al-Khudair wrote about this issue. He mentioned it in one of his books, and he wrote it. And I directed him to go there, to where Sheikh Ali al-Khudair mentioned, may Allah hasten his release, him and his brothers and all our brothers and sisters in prison. So I directed him to go read it. Generally speaking, in all matters, if one didn't study the works of Ibn Taymiyyah fully and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab fully and thoroughly, and doesn't know their style of writing, don't sit there and take quotes out of context and call people kuffar and mushrikeen, making takfir left and right. Especially Ibn Taymiyyah. If you don't fully study his work and read his complete fatawa, if you don't read it, don't think you're at a status of taking snippets and quoting it. I don't care how high one thinks he is. In many issues, for those who don't know Ibn Taymiyyah's works, he has matters that appear to be contradictory. Even in the simple matter, the recent one, the half of Sha'ban. He has matters that appear to one who doesn't know his work to be contradictory. You see one who has never opened a volume of Fatawa Ibn Taymiyyah, he never, of course, read it cover to cover, let alone studied it. In fact, he doesn't know the language of the Fatawa to read it, takes out of the Fatawa snippets in second and third hand translations, and issues takfir and shirk. That's why elucidations like this, what we do, and explanations of the books of Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Muhammad bin Abdul, there's books written on the style, wallahi, on the style of, not on elucidation, there's books written on the style of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab's works. A style of writing, on his style of writing. That's why I said there are those who devoted years and years to the study of giants like this, to show them what they mean, to show what the words mean, what appears to be contradictory in one fatwa to another fatwa, and how to combine between the two, and what the circumstances was. Place the quotes of ulama to situations where they belong, where they intended them to belong, not where you feel they belong. And don't declare others mushrikeen kuffar in matter the giants disputed. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, it's a disputed matter, but don't declare one whose heart is full of iman, who hates the tawaghit and goes to retrieve a right. It's a matter that giants disputed. Don't declare people mushrikeen kuffar on it. And like I said, you can read what Sheikh Ali al-Khudair and others wrote about this matter. And if Allah permits, I'm going to write a detailed book on this matter. Let's move on.